Traditionally, candidates kiss babies, not throw them out.
Actually, I was only kidding. You can get the baby out of here.
But Donald Trump is not your traditional candidate. Tonight, a closer look at how the GOP is dealing with its standard bearer. Plus, healthcare in Arizona, how hospitals are working to improve care and coverage, the art of backing a candidate with a mind of his own, and a uniquely Arizona strategy for healthcare. It's all part of Politics Unplugged. Good evening. I'm political editor Dennis Welch, and this is Politics Unplugged. And joining us tonight is Robert Graham. He is the chairman of the Arizona Republican Party, and he's here to give us some insight on how the party is trying to come together right now, trying to unify, trying to get together for this election season. Is unity a word you would use to describe the Republican Party right now?
I would use it, I would describe it as a word that I say often, actually, and try to bring people together. And right now, you'd be surprised, we're more unified than separate, especially in Arizona right now.
It doesn't seem like that from the outside. You look at this, there's a lot of infighting. We'll get to the standard bearer here in a little bit, but, you know, you're looking at this stuff right now. It doesn't seem like we're all unified here. There was that big fight earlier in the year between the Ted Cruz people and the Trump people over delegates after the presidential preference election.
Yeah, you know, when the presidential preference election, they were hoping for, it looked like it was going to be a contested election, or a contested convention. The 1237 votes looked like they were going to be very tight for Trump. And so people have to remember there were two campaigns to run. There was one, the primary caucus campaigns, and then there was the delegate campaigns. And so the Cruz and Kasich alliance outplayed the Trump people for sure. But that's politics, right? You fight to win, and that's the mission and the goal. Again, you know, Trump then turns it and wins 2-1 over Cruz in so many different ways here in the state, which led us to a convention where all 58 votes went. If you notice, there was nobody behind me throwing knives at me or trying to take me down when I announced our 58 bound delegate votes. So it's a process. People have to move through the process at different times.
Let me ask you about that. I've gotten some emails, some questions about that as to why you were the one who cast the 58 delegates, not the governor, who was the leader of the actual delegation.
Yeah, the governor, you know, he's in a position where he has that latitude as the chairman of the convention delegation, and he talked to me and thought it would be a good idea to have me do it, and so I was happy to do it. I mean, we've got an interesting delegation that went there, and we fought hard as an organization to make sure Arizona did the right thing, and the governor was happy to support it. So he was a very instrumental role, but where we were standing also in that aisleway was pretty high risk given the cameras and all the media that were coming through as well.
All right, now let's talk a little bit shortly after the convention. The Republican pollster Frank Luntz told Arizona delegates that you need to do more to reach out to millennials. Specifically, what did he tell you to do about that, and did he give Arizona delegates any more advice, any other statements?
Yeah, I mean, he talked about not just the millennials, but the other minority demographics and such. And Frank and I have known each other for some time, and he's given our state quite a bit of advice over the years that we've taken him up on it. You know, one of the things about the millennials is the Democrat National Party and Hillary have made it easier for us to reach out to millennials. The way they more or less dissed Bernie over the Democratic National Convention, those millennials are transitioning to Trump. In speaking with one Bernie person, supporter, he said, we believe that Bernie and Trump were telling us the truth, and we're sick of the establishment.
But that's anecdotal evidence. Are you seeing any hard data out there showing that millennials, because I mean, when I talk to Bernie backers, they're saying no way they're going to support Donald Trump, and a lot of them are saying they're not even going to support Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, and in either way you slice that one for the Republican nominee, that's a good thing, because it disenfranchised people that we'd normally want to engage in one part or the other. We want those people engaged because we want them to see the opportunity associated with the party. But now they've got this refresh button. And again, people, when they get stomped on like that, they pull back, okay? But what we're seeing again is the millennials are talking to us. You go into any of our campaign offices statewide, and you'll find that the average age is probably 22. Right now. And these are all the volunteers that are in there working and doing it and making thousands and thousands and thousands of phone calls. So when you start to look at it, we look at action. You call it anecdotal evidence. I call it reality when I'm talking to somebody waiting on me in a store. If it's somebody that's making phone calls, we want to really tap into it and see where it is. Polling, as you know, especially in this cycle, doesn't really give you much because they're applying traditional theory to it. Now it has to be boots on the ground, eyeball to eyeball, to get real information and make good choices.
Now let's talk about the party standard bearer. What was the feeling post the election? Did you feel people coming together after that?
Yeah, it was not just out. It was actually before that. The day that Melania spoke. That was a kind of a unifying feel toward the end of that day. You felt people coming together. The next day, we had our interesting challenges, even leading in through Ted Cruz's speech. You had this where he walked onto the stage and the entire arena erupted in a standing ovation. We're thrilled for him. When he walked off the stage, he had head down, and he had people fighting across the aisle. Okay, so there was this disjointedness that happened at that particular moment. People then tried to suck it up. When Donald Trump spoke, you heard his hour and 10-minute speech, and people actually were engaged. And I heard people walking out, how they thought about it. They thought it was the most presidential speech he's given. And so they were confident. But that's where people shift, and they start, even if they don't like the candidate, they start to line up behind them because the alternative of Hillary Clinton is far worse.
So let's talk about then after the Democrat convention. Has Trump acted presidential? You said it was the most presidential speech during the Republican convention. Since the Democrat convention, since both conventions wrapped up, do you think he's been presidential? Kicking babies out of campaign events, picking fights with establishment Republicans.
I would tell you that when I watched Donald Trump as a candidate, when I watched him as a primary candidate, and now I watch him as a general candidate, he's no different in either one of these elections. So, again, presidential is defined by you or me, and you look at it and you hope for a certain type of presidential candidate. But I can tell you that going through this process, Donald Trump is at least staying true to his nature. Trump is Trump. And so I won't comment on his comments or his opinions as it relates to the baby issue, for instance. But I can tell you that almost 14 million people voted for him, and his kind of strong, bombastic nature hasn't changed.
Now, Jan Brewer, former Governor Jan Brewer, recently told CNN that she wished that Donald Trump would tone it down a little bit. Do you agree with her?
Let me tell you, I want Donald Trump to keep up the heat, and I want him to really focus on the enemy at hand. And the enemy at hand is Hillary Clinton. It's Barack Obama's policy. It's this social movement that's happening within the progressives in our country. That's what I want him to focus on. And when he talks clearly about those, it's strong and it's focused. And so, yeah, I want him to be really focused on this. Again, he has his battles, and he's going to fight his fights. And that's Donald Trump. So my job is to get him elected.
So you want him to keep up the heat. Does that include keeping up this war of words with Senator John McCain?
No. I would love to see him focused 100% on winning elections, and the real enemy here is Hillary Clinton. And so I want him to be focused on who the real opposition is. And I watch his campaign, and strategically they've done some really amazing things. When you look at the non-conventional, disruptive way of doing things, and just ultimately the vote getting, and then we hear what people are saying. They're calling it. People are they just want to get back to here's the substantive discussion that's going to lead to opportunity for the people.
Should Trump endorse McCain?
I don't think you should ever suggest that any Republican anything or Democrat anything should have to endorse a party nominee or what have you. I would tell you that it's their prerogative. In some cases, candidates don't want the other person to endorse. So in McCain's case, McCain has personally come out and said he supports the nominee. He's already been very open in his support for Donald Trump. And so, again, they have to work that out, and that's an individual thing. But
and I believe we do have a soundbite from the senator when he visited our studios here the other day. Let's take a listen to that right now if we can.
I believe that I support the nominee of the party, but I also will speak up when I feel it necessary to do so.
You know, President Barack Obama the other day, made it a point saying, like, if people are constantly having to rebuke statements by Donald Trump, at what point do they have to just withdraw their endorsement? Do you?
Yeah, I don't think, the left would want nothing else but to have our people renounced, because that shows further division. When you have a party that has the resignation of their chairman of their national party, the opening day of their conventions, they've got major, major issues. And so they would like to show and demonstrate that division. When Senator McCain speaks like this, he's talking about the Gold Star family. And he is a soldier, as a prisoner of war, as a wounded veteran, has a very intimate understanding of the veterans' ideals and all the things that are happening. And so that's what he was speaking about in that interview. And in many cases, I agree with what he said.
Real quick, we got about 10 seconds left. You are looking at running for the National Republican Party chairman.
I would
Are you in? Yeah. What's going on?
I'll tell you that a lot. My #1 objective is to win elections in November for our state. We've got our presidential, we've got our U.S. Senate, and other races that are very important. I've been encouraged, and I'll tell you, it's a consideration.
All right, I'll keep asking you that every time you come on the show until we get an answer one way or the other from you. But we're going to take another quick break right here right now, but we have lots more to come here on Politics Unplugged. Coming up next, a new collaboration helps bring the best of city hospitals to small-town Arizona. A closer look at how hospitals across the state are looking for ways to save patients' lives and pocketbooks.
Can you say phony?
Plus, the race for Congressional District 5 takes a new turn as some outside money comes in here on Politics Unplugged.
Welcome to my hoarding nightmare.
My son does not have a place to sleep.
Her husband left 12 years ago.
You let your marriage crumble rather than deal with this. Why?
On the next Dr. Phil, Monday at 3 on 3TV. What's normal teenage behavior, and what could be the sign of something else?
How one simple change at the doctor's visit could help tackle a problem that affects the safety of our schools, our police, and our loved ones.
Thursday at 9 on 3TV.
Express Flooring makes the grade during our annual back-to-school sale. Not only will you get fast, free in-home shopping, you'll save up to 67% on carpet, tile, laminate, or vinyl plank. Plus, buy now and pay no interest until 2018. And Express Flooring will even move your furniture for free. For A-plus savings, selection, and service, call Express Flooring today. Express Flooring is the best. Call 800-EXPRESS. Call Express today.
There is a place, unlike anywhere else on Earth, where you can walk among red giants. A place where your spirit will soar and your heart will race. Where a simple stroll can turn into the adventure of a lifetime. A place where you can become small and mighty all at once. Sedona. The most beautiful place on Earth in so many ways.
Celeste. We want to return our house. It's a lemon. But it's got those vaulted ceilings.
The internet is really slow. We can't get anything done.
And I sell dollhouse furniture online.
It's her hobby.
It's a business.
Oh, you must have CenturyLink. Just get Cox. They have the same top speeds everywhere.
Everyone deserves fast.
We'll keep it.
Bundles including Cox high-speed internet start at just $99.99 a month. $100 prepaid card included.
I'm Gina Maravilla from Arizona's Family Surprise Squad.
We just want to say a big thank you to you guys.
I feel like I'm in a dream. Somebody pinched me.
I've never gotten anything given to me in my life.
Arizona's Family Surprise Squad is on the move.
I can't believe you. Thank you.
We need to help our teachers.
Thank you.
I wish you could have. I really do.
Nice to know people care.
Thank you so much, Arizona's Family.
Where will we be next? Gotta find out.
Thank you, 3TV.
And welcome back to Politics Unplugged. From Republicans vowing to repeal Obamacare to insurance companies pulling out of exchanges, there is a lot of uncertainty in the healthcare system right now. But joining us right now is a man who says Arizona hospitals are working to make sure patients know they are covered from one end of the state to the other. And he is Matt Horn, Executive Director of the Arizona Health Collaborative. Thanks for joining us here. First of all, let's start with what we're talking about here. What is your role? Why is it significant?
Well, as healthcare continues to reform through the Affordable Care Act, there's an immense amount of change that's happening across the country. And in Arizona, what we're finding is that there's limited federal dollars that hospitals and providers are competing for. And so our effort through the collaborative is to bring together independent hospitals, free thinkers to come and find ways to provide high quality care at a low cost to each of the patients in Arizona.
So if you're a patient out there in Arizona and you're watching this, how is it affecting their lives, the work you guys are doing at this collaborative?
We're bringing together the hospital CEOs, the chief financial officers, the chief medical officers, and we're talking about what are some of the best practices that are out there in both the urban settings as well as the rural settings. And what we really want to make sure is that if an urban hospital or a rural hospital has a best practice, that comes to light to the entire group so that patients in each of those communities can benefit from it.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges in Arizona. There's always been a lot of talk about what's going on in rural Arizona. You know, it's harder to get good doctors out there. Patients have to travel a little bit farther. What are you guys seeing in that area, and what are you guys doing?
There very much is a challenge in rural Arizona, and what we're finding is that there's a shortage of physicians. There's also a shortage of specialists that can provide care to those that are the sickest and the elderliest. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that through the different initiatives and the value that we can bring to each of the collaborative members, that we can offer solutions so that the rural hospitals as well as the rural community isn't, so that they can benefit and they don't suffer from not having access.
Tell us about some of the innovations maybe you guys are using to try to reach out to the folks in those rural areas out there. Are we talking about telemedicine? Are you using applications on smartphones? What's happening?
Absolutely. We have just begun developing a telehealth program. We are focusing on specific service lines in this first year, but we'll certainly hope to roll it out to others to help those who may have stroke, may have behavioral health issues, cardiac events, those sorts of things, so they have the access to the specialists just like folks in the urban parts of Arizona.
What about applications like apps on phones? Because I use an app every now and then. It was a few months ago. I think wasn't feeling well. I downloaded this app. I talked to a doctor, on my phone, on FaceTime, and within about 45 minutes, I was, at Walgreens getting my medicine. Is that something you guys are also looking at doing?
Absolutely. There's certainly a need to reach the consumer of healthcare directly in their home. So, although there's the traditional bricks and mortar that we're all accustomed to, going to the hospital or the clinic, there's certainly a growing need to make sure that we can deliver those services in the patient's home on their phone.
And since this is a political show, I'm not going to ask you to take a side on politics, but there is so much talk about, the Affordable Care Act, whether it's working, whether it's not working, and there's that political debate. I'm not asking you to weigh in on that. But is it making it harder to do your job? Is it confusing the public?
There's certainly there's much more what I would call regulatory burden that's out there today, which requires experts, and it requires consultants, and it requires administrators to figure out how to make sure that they can navigate all of the new administrative overhead that's involved with that. So absolutely, there is a growing interest in needing that.
So how do you kind of navigate patients through that, the whole Affordable Care Act now?
Well, what we start with is that the Affordable Care Act, its intent was to help improve quality of care and lower costs, and also opening up access to insurance coverage to those who didn't have it before. So we want to make sure that as we explain the Affordable Care Act to consumers, that we give them very simple instructions as to where's the appropriate place to access care, when is the right time to utilize an emergency department versus a physician's office, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit, too, about some of the successes of your operation, how much money you've been able to save patients, customers, clients.
Well, our initial results are showing that we have a little over $4.5 million in savings, and that's through supply chain costs. So, as I mentioned, we have aggregated a purchasing power of both urban and rural hospitals, and we've been able to drive down costs and direct supplies for several of those hospitals.
And just let me ask you real quick then, we got about 20 seconds left. Has the ACA, has it worked? Has it driven down costs?
Well, I think that's still up for debate. I think that there is a growing trend in that folks are feeling that the Affordable Care Act is in some areas lowering costs, but in some areas increasing costs. So I think it's still up for debate at this time.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for stopping by here. We're going to have to take another quick break, but we've got lots more to talk about on Politics Unplugged, including the candidate who just keeps taking center stage, even if some of his own party have had enough.
I have said everything that I want to say on the situation, and frankly, I'm not going to talk about it anymore. There's nothing for you to follow up. Let me just say to you, that is the last time. I'm sorry if you expect me to respond to everything that Mr. Trump says. I'm just not going to do it.
Just ahead, there is no getting away from the long shadow cast by Donald Trump.
It's time to head back to school with American Furniture Warehouse. Headed back to school? American Furniture Warehouse is your small space headquarters. We have the best and largest selection available at the lowest prices anywhere. You'll be able to furnish your entire space with a lot less green here at American. Come in and see the great deals on back-to-school furniture. So get a jump on your shopping and come visit us at American Furniture Warehouse or shop online at afwonline.com.
Quality top-tier gas helps keep engines clean.
I have helped keep your engine clean.
I will call you Donnie.
Who's Donnie?
Arco, quality top-tier gas for less.
You paid too much for those glasses.
Who?
You. Designer frames? Well, so are these. And these. And these. And they all cost less than those.
How?
America's Best, where 2 pairs of designer glasses and a free eye exam start at $69.95. Get ready to...
turn some heads?
Save money.
That's good, too.
The designer sales event is not just a better deal, it's America's Best. Hurry, sale ends soon.
Your Marine Corps' way of life is to defend the American way of life. Every day, no matter where we serve, we take a stand for our nation, for each other, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
And welcome back to Politics Unplugged. It's time to talk it out with our partner from First Strategic, Barry Dale. Also with us today is political consultant Emily Ryan from Copper State Consulting. Thank you so much. First time appearing here on the Talk It Out segment. Thank you very much for stopping by. Me. And let's just dive right into this and let's start talking about Donald Trump. Rough week for him. Started off with a war of words with the parents of a fallen Muslim soldier who was killed in Iraq about 12 years ago. Kaiser Khan spoke at the Democratic National Convention, asking Trump if he had even read the Constitution. Trump first responded on Twitter and later in interviews. This thing is just blown up as many people say he would not be attacking the parents. He should not be attacking the parents of a fallen soldier. Emily, how is this playing, as the resident Republican here now, how is this playing with members of your party?
I think we're all cringing a little bit, or a lot, as we hear this develop and go on, but we're starting to get a little bit used to it, a little desensitized to it. This is not the first time that we have thought, this is it. Now he's done it. I wouldn't have handled it that way. Certainly, if he was asking me for advice, I would pull the Twitter account away from him and tell him to throttle back a little bit. There
is a lot of chaos behind the scenes there at the campaign, but but he did try to mend some fences with some families here. Let's take a listen to what he had to say about that.
A man came up to me and he handed me his Purple Heart. I said, man, that's like big stuff. I always wanted to get the Purple Heart. This was much easier. But I tell you, it was such an honor.
Was that sincere? It almost seemed like he was trying to make light of the whole situation.
It's like he can't get out of his own way. He can't. You can't compliment and give him a gift without him then going on and saying something absolutely stupid, like before a crowd, especially while you're trying to recruit veterans to your campaign. You pick a fight with the Gold Star family first of all, and then you go and say, well, I got mine a lot easier than having to go to war, because we all know he was a had a deferment and didn't have to go to Vietnam four different times.
Well, and speaking of veterans, I mean, there was a key veteran that he is refusing to endorse. I wonder who that is. Obviously, we're talking about Senator John McCain as well as Paul Ryan. I mean, why is he picking fights with these folks?
Well, Trump has really done well for himself by being an unorthodox, non-traditional candidate, and he is doubling down on that. He's been rewarded for it. I mean, and you've got Bernie Sanders on the other side of the aisle that darn near pulled it off doing the same thing. We almost had 2 independents running against each other. Trump is unorthodox, but the voters have started to make me believe that they're ready for a non-traditional candidate. Now, poor John McCain, I mean, if I had a nickel for every time his name was said at the Democratic National Convention, I'd be a rich woman. I wouldn't even have to be here today. You talk about a political bear hug.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the politics of him. You saw the little montage we had coming out of the last segment. That was John McCain, being asked about Donald Trump, saying he's done talking about this. What's the political calculation behind what he's doing here, Barry?
Well, John McCain, first of all, has to support the nominee.
Does he?
I mean, yes, he does. Yes,
Why?
he does. He's in a primary, and he's in you know, probably not a tough primary, but he needs to win by a very big margin going into his general election, because that's going to be tough for him. The other thing I really believe is I believe this is a very bad mistake on Donald Trump's part, because in the state of Arizona, Donald Trump needs John McCain a lot more than John McCain needs Donald Trump. And so the other thing I really firmly believe is that there's 98.7% of the population that don't give a crap about who endorses whom, and that this is an insider's game, and the media has just fermented this.
All right, how can he continue to support a nominee when he has things like this to say about babies? Here, let's take a listen to this.
Don't worry about that baby. I love babies. I love babies. I hear that baby crying. I like. Actually, I was only kidding. You can get the baby out of here.
At what point, Emily, is he going to have to step back and say...
Babies can't vote, for one. So, other than that, though, no, John McCain is in a tough spot, because you've got the Clintons trying to pull him over and bear hug him, and then you've got Donald Trump pushing him away. We know, Barry knows, there are a lot of establishment Republicans that are frustrated with John McCain. They may think he's too moderate on a lot of issues. So, you know, Trump distancing himself from a long-time establishment kind of Republican, he may be making the political calculation this will pay off.
Really, for his campaign, it's really too bad, because the whole week we've been talking about these Trump controversies, when instead, if he'd have kept quieter, wasn't stoking up these types of controversies, everybody be talking about what Hillary Clinton did over the weekend, in which she got called out by the Washington Post for 4 Pinocchios.
You're exactly right. And the other thing is, they've missed yet another whole week, and there's going to be another 2-week hole in media coverage because the Olympics are starting. So I think political news will sort of die down over these next 2 weeks, and every week you lose is just another week you're not gaining any ground. If you're not gaining ground, you're falling behind.
All right, let's bring it here a little bit locally here. A lot of big money coming in against Christine Jones. She's a Republican candidate out in CD5. Let's take a look at this new ad.
Hillary Clinton, effective? Christine Jones thinks so. Excited about Obama? Christine Jones was. Can you say phony?
Wow, labeling her a phony. Now, that ad was paid for by the Club for Growth. Why are they jumping in right now?
They're jumping in right now because Christine Jones is leading. She's running away with this right now. Christine Jones is the only candidate out there in a crowded field that has been on broadcast television. The rest are running cable ads, but she has just saturated the market, and she's leading.
Is it too late, though? Is it too late for because, I mean, early balloting's already started. She's probably likely going to win that first round of early ballot voters.
2 things. I think, yes, it is. I think it is too late. I totally agree with your assessment that early voting has already started. Number 2 is I expect Christine Jones to come back and hit very hard at the Club for Growth, who are really an out-of-state entity based in Wall Street, in New York.
And we got about 20 seconds left, Emily. Is Arizona going to be in play for Democrats this year come November? A lot of talk that it could be.
Yeah. Well, I'm laughing because, no, I really don't think that it is. I don't think, I mean, Donald Trump beat 16 Republican candidates here in this state handily. I don't think we're going to flip. I think day by day we're seeing different polls. There's a lot of worry about it, but no, I don't think that it is.
All right, thanks a lot. That's all the time we have this week for Politics Unplugged. See you next week. Good night.